All right, thanks, Scott. Thanks for having me, and thanks, BetaWorks, for having me as well. Um, okay, so I'm like the opposite of how the last talk started. Are there any non-engineers here? Okay, a few. Is everyone else an engineer? All right, great. Um, okay, so I'm a graphic designer by trade, right? And let me jump here. Hold on. Sorry, I got my notes here on my phone. Okay, so 10 years ago, I bootstrapped a startup with my wife, who is an engineer. And I just want to share a little bit about my story tonight of what I built and like how I built it, how I've used AI to build it. Basically, how I went from being totally ignorant about AI to building a fully functional MVP in about 10 weeks. Okay, really quick. What I'm building, it's an AI assistant for parents, basically. So I got laid off in December, which sucked at the time, but was actually really great because I wanted to do the entrepreneurial thing again. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. And it was a good kick to get that started, I guess. So I've always wanted to build something for parents, right? I'm a parent of two kids. I have an 11-year-old and a 4-year-old. And there are so many, how many other parents are here? Anybody? Couple? All right, great. So there are so many pain points for parents. So what I'm building is a tool, it's called Lido, and basically it reads the email. You have all these communications coming at you, email, WhatsApp groups, like emails from the school, from the teacher, the class parent, etc. We read those emails and extract tasks out of them. So it's a task manager at its core, the first feature. Okay, all right. So, okay, so like I said, okay, so I know front end, like HTML, CSS, right? I could do like some PHP includes. That was the extent of my like engineering capability. So I had this existential crisis after I got laid off and decided to work on something. I thought, okay, if I can't code, I will never be an entrepreneur again, right? Like I really want to build something. I didn't have anybody in my network, any engineers in my network who were like ready to jump in and build something at the time. And my wife, she told me, hey, use AI. And I was really, really like resistant to doing that. I was like, no, I have to learn how to code, right? I'd used AI previously, like in Photoshop, like on our design team, which was pretty great, but I hadn't used it for really much of anything. And I was oblivious to its ability to produce code. So I started, I didn't want to just like draw a picture or make a Figma prototype, a clickable prototype, right? It's like, okay, like any designer can do that. I wanted to build a real thing. So I started with Retool, and I built kind of this crappy demo for like the first set of parents I was working with. It's basically a spreadsheet that had like a database attached to it, and you could do you could make it like function. There were different pages and stuff. You guys look at this, you're engineers. But it required me to like keep learning like Retool specific like tools. And I was like, well, I'd rather like actually try and build something on the web that works. Okay, so sorry, I haven't practiced this talk at all, so bear with me. I said everything there. Okay, so eventually I started using AI, right? And I had only used it, to answer questions before, right? So as soon as I started using it, so one, I picked Ruby, which I don't know why I wrote fight me, because I'm at a Ruby meetup, right? Because inevitably when I talk to engineers about this, they're like, why didn't you choose Python? And I'm like, I don't know, dude, because like I just want to build something quickly, and Ruby was a suggestion that was given to me, and it's like pretty easy to like read and understand. So I came up with a name, Lido, picked some typefaces. I'm a designer, and we're trying to be perfectionists. But what I learned the last time I did this was like, really focus on finding product market fit and building functionality. So I started working in VS Code. That was pretty like it was amazing, that you could. Well, I learned that you could start building stuff. It sounds super dumb, but then I switched to RubyMine. I picked Claude to be the tool of use to help me code. And basically, I'm functioning as a product manager, right? Although it didn't really start out that way. I started out by just doing the vibe coding thing, right? Like I would ask Claude to code a feature, and I would copy and paste, slap it in there, and then move on to the next thing. and like that works. You know, like you can get to a certain point, but then it stops like working, and then you don't know how to like how to fix it, how to debug it, etc. You run into problems. Um, I also ran into like problems with long conversations, running out of tokens with Claude, and then like looping in Copilot, right? GitHub Copilot inside RubyMine. Like if you just, I learned that like I would ask it a question, trying to debug something, and it would just like cycle through solutions. And then by the time the second time it loops around, I'm like, oh my god, it doesn't know what to do. It doesn't have all the context. This is why like I'm convinced like AI will absolutely not replace engineers. Um, Okay. Okay. So some things that I've learned is like ChatGPT and Claude. You can set up projects. You give it some knowledge, right? You put all your chats in there, and it starts to accumulate knowledge about what you're doing. Um, you can give it instructions. Like you have to be very, very explicit with the instructions. Like the prompt that goes off to Claude to parse through the emails. Like I almost feel it's like it's yelling at Claude. It's like, don't do this. Only return JSON in this format. You know. It's like, Okay, but basically, I learned that I realized I needed to slow down and and understand what the code was doing, right? If I really wanted to make this into like a functioning thing. Context. Sorry, I'm out of sync here. My notes. Okay, so when I started, I don't think Claude Code was available. So I started in January. Spent 10 weeks building this thing. I didn't want to do Claude Code because I don't want to code in the terminal. Like I don't really understand that. I hate the terminal. Like I despise it. But that again, graph designer. And like this stuff is advancing so rapidly. So I learned basically to create implementation plans with Claude, right? And if they're like very very long, I'll break them apart. I'll save them as a PDF, and then I'll upload them into like a new conversation, because you can only talk to it for so long before it runs out of context. Then you have to start a new conversation, give it context, etc. And then I'll go into Copilot and RubyMine to debug like specific things. Okay, so what I do is I have a structured Google Doc format. I use tabs in Google Docs, which I just discovered like 5 weeks ago. I'll put a little check mark next to it when that's done. I keep like the prompt and the summary. Like when I started, I wasn't recording anything, and I would get to a functioning feature, and I'd be like, okay, I don't know how this is working, or like how to debug it. So documentation, it seems super basic, right? It's like you wouldn't do that at like a job. You'd document things, have user requirements, user stories, etc. And I'll go through and I'll just like check off the code once I like paste it in. And then let's see here. This is a super useful feature for me, right? Again, I'm like learning like how the system works. So I've learned the slowdown when I'm going to replace something or add code, like do the visual comparison, which I find super helpful to see how it's working, so I can step through it. Okay. What else here? All right, that's the same thing there. Again, this is like more for like non-engineers. So you guys already know this. Don't rely on AI to solve everything. It's going to introduce bugs. Like when I put Claude into extended thinking mode, it's like super great at the implementation plans, but then it'll just start like writing code, and I'll be like, whoa, like stop, like you're using up all my tokens, and then it'll be, it's like it's like a junior like intern or something, and it'll be like, well, I could do this and I could do that and I could like add this styling, and I'm like, hold on, buddy, I got like the CSS, it'll just like go off, so you have to sort of like get control of it. Copilot. Okay, so the other thing I've learned is like AI is like everywhere now, right? Like when I do a PR in GitHub, I'll run it through the Copilot like reviewer, and then I'll take that back. I'll talk to Claude if I use Claude for like strategic thinking now, and then like Copilot in RubyMine I use like for the debugging. So it's super helpful. I use a tool called Natin to do the email authentication and like processing with Claude, and that has its own AI. So I'll it's crazy. Like there'll be a problem, I'll ask that AI agent, for help, and then I'll send that back to like Claude, and it's almost like they're conversing with each other, but I'm just the intermediary. But it's all right. sorry, that's 10 minutes. It's amazing to me that that I can do this and that I can build things. So and for me, like where I'm at, like I'm definitely looking for a technical co-founder to scale beyond the MVP. um, but this has enabled me to go from 0 to 1 with a product that like people are actually using, and it's secure and everything. Um, okay, I think that, yeah. Thank you. That's my thing. All right. So, yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone.